Come with us to one of the most visited Mayan ruins in Mexico, Chichen Itza. We woke up at 5:30 to catch our 6:30 ride with Carlos. Chichen Itza is not the largest or grandest Mayan ruin, yet is the most visited. This is because it's only a 2-hour drive away from Playa del Carmen. The stretch from Cancun to Tulum generates about 40% of Mexico's tourism, making the proximity to Chichen Itza significant. We opted to get there right when it opened so we could have as much time there as possible before the big crowds took over, something that is a perk of doing a private tour, that and the great photos. If you book through the Viator link in the description or in our free-to-access activity guide in my bio, we highly recommend asking for Carlos Balderas. Chichen Itza has been significantly restored to what you see today. The area was once private land and eventually was sold to the Mexican government in the early 2000s. There are over 2,000 temples in the area that are slowly but surely being restored over time. In the 1900s, many of the temples were repurposed to build the mansion of the private property owner, making it difficult to know exactly what went where. Rocks placed back on Chichen Itza in the restoration process were discovered at its base. Archaeologists began building out one face and making their way around till they ran out of materials. Regardless, the Mayans were very mathematically advanced. Chichen Itza, like many other Mayan temples, are connected to astrology. At the base of the stairs there's a serpent head, and on the solstices a sun-streaked water falls down the stairs creating the body of the serpent. Snakes were very commonly depicted along with jaguars. In the restoration process, they discovered that the Chichen Itza we see today is the outer face of a set of smaller temples within, similar to Russian nesting dolls. The staircases to the inner temples still exist today, but folks are not allowed inside anymore, similar to how there's restrictions around climbing the main stairs. Chichen Itza is similar to many of the other places we visited because it has a Pakataka court. It's still controversial to say if Pakataka was a recreational game or a ritualistic game that ended in sacrifice. Chichen Itza is unique, however, in the fact that it has an observatory and a sauna. The observatory that you see now is also designed around the stars, specifically their windows. As the Earth rotates and the degree of the Earth shifts with its alignment with the Sun, looking through the windows in a diagonal fashion directs you to the different star formations. The observatory was truly magnificent design that hadn't been seen elsewhere. This final section that we visited was the most preserved. There was a god depicted that was thought to be the bringer of rain with an elephant-type trunk and corn surrounding them. On our way back to the car, we stopped to see how wood would have been incorporated in the structures back in the day. Next stop was lunch in Valladolid. It has a lot of history too, with its colonial buildings dating back to the 16th century. After a delicious lunch, we got back in the car and headed to Chukum Cenote. This was the first closed cenote that we've gotten to visit. We still had to shower off any sunscreen before heading down to the cave. All cenotes are connected and are the groundwater source in the Yucatan. Over time, the water level height has shifted and it can be seen when scuba diving in the cenotes. I really liked the cenote because of the sun rays and the fact that it had zipline and diving platforms. Of course, we had to do both. Kiefer and I raced on the tandem ziplines, and then I hopped on the diving platform. It had been years since I dove, so they're not the cleanest, but it was still really fun to do a front dive and then an inward. There were a few key differences between the open and closed cenotes. First, there were not many fish to see if you bring snorkel gear. It was, however, really interesting to be able to see all the way to the bottom with the sun rays. This cenote was only about 60 feet deep. Our guide had shared that before they banned fins, he used to free dive and collect the jewelry and other lost belongings at the bottom. Another distinguishing factor between closed and open cenotes are that closed have a bunch of stalactites. Stalactites are formed when groundwater drips into a pool and leaves behind minerals to solidify, sometimes in straw-like fashions. They don't allow you to touch the rocks to help preserve the stalactite formation. This one even had a section closed off to protect the overgrowing stalactite. Spent about 45 minutes here, some of which was all by ourselves, which was truly a delight before we got out, changed, and then drove back to Playa del Carmen. Thanks for joining, and make sure to follow and subscribe for more places to visit and activities to see on your travels.